Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Angel Face Magic Hour. Today, we have a very special guest. We have our second reprise guest. We have Sloan Tate on. So I'm so excited to talk to you. Sloan is a medium, a healer. If you guys missed her first episode, you can go and check that out. It was like a year or so ago. So I know a lot has shifted in your life. So I'm excited to have you back on. But for those who haven't heard that episode or don't know who you are, I'm just going to have you introduce yourself just a little bit, like who you are, your name, that kind of thing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sloan Tate, and I am a medium, mentor, and author, best-selling author of A Guide to Afterlife Communication.
Yes. Yeah. So the last time that you came on, I was saying this to you a second ago, but that was right before your book came out. So I know a lot has kind of transpired. At the time you were in Miami. Now, where are you now?
I'm currently in Tennessee. I'm currently right now in an Airbnb in Knoxville, Tennessee, but I am on a venture of finding where I'm going to land in Tennessee. So I'm house hunting here. City hunting, house hunting.
And is that where you grew up? Like around there?
I grew up in a town outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where I've been living for the last couple months. So I've spent a little time in Knoxville and Memphis. I've been teetering. I've also spent a little time in Nashville, but I haven't quite landed where I'm gonna start to build. So currently I'm exploring, and I think it'll be really interesting to listen back to this podcast and hear where I'm at once I land and decide.
Yeah. What spark? So, I follow you on Instagram. I love following you. So you guys should definitely follow Sloan. But so I've kind of seen a little bit like you've been traveling, exploring, but like what sparked you to decide to move out of Miami? I feel like you were like Miami, like that was you. So it's interesting and I'm excited for you, but I'm curious, like what was the like spark for that?
Wow, what a big question.
I know, sorry.
It's interesting how messages come from spirit. I have devoted my life to being what I call is spirit-led, spirit-guided, and I listen to my intuition, I listen to the premonitions I receive. I've been living in Miami for the last 10 years and loved it. Was all about me's Miami. And suddenly, it's interesting how this particular premonition came because I think there was always a desire of me returning home. I left for New York City probably a few months after I graduated college and was in a deep healing state. My great-grandmother was passing away. She hadn't passed yet. I didn't know what I was going to do. I studied art in the city and was living in Mississippi. And I remember just being like, I want the opposite of this.
Yeah.
To me, I was having really strong premonitions of me moving to New York City. Ended up doing it, Mississippi, Manhattan overnight. Moved to Manhattan, stayed there a few years, and then moved to Miami and had the same premonitions that I was moving to Miami. And so it's interesting and I think I always had this desire, if this doesn't work out, I'll move back home.
Yeah.
And so there was always this little thread going through, but that desire of, if my backup plan ended up being something I had to look at, because I realized, like, why is that my backup plan? Why do I place that lower than making it in the city, right? And I had this breakup with achievement. I felt that there was a decade of me rushing to reach achievements and do many amazing things led by spirit, and work with many practitioners that were just incredible, and build big relationships in spiritual communities that you can only find in this living and amongst the trifecta of LA, New York, and Miami. And then all of a sudden there was this lack of excitement. It was like,
It's time.
Yeah, I think that spirit guides you in I think we often think about spirit coming to us in our dreams and big visions. It also comes in with feelings and desires, and so all of a sudden, Miami started to become this like glitterly, all the gold started just to turn into glitter, where I no longer was so excited to take this workout class or like meet this person or be in this community or work with this healer. And it just all kind of became the same thing. And I loved the community. I loved my friends, my deep relationships that I had. And I think that kept me there for the last few years. But then all of a sudden I realized I just didn't have any future goals there. Like nothing excited me about, felt like I had reached it. I had read I wrote the book. I had built communities.
You got a freaking house.
Yeah, I got,
You're like,
got my dream place. I did all of the things.
you did it all. Yeah.
And I still felt as if there was a part of me missing.
And you feel like that is like more the family side of it, like,
Yeah.
or more like just the space itself? Like, do you feel like it's because your family's there, or just like that land itself is healing for you?
Definitely being in the land, it's very healing. And I as soon as what's interesting is that I started to have fear, like a big fear started coming up to me. And this is the interesting part, right? Because there's a lot of clients that come to me and are saying, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, but a lot of that anxiety typically tends to be transmissions from spirit or some kind of spiritual communication. It's getting muffled. And so I myself had to work through that. Like I had to figure out, like, what's the basis of this? What is the fear? And my fear was that I was going to fail. And it was like this bizarre thing that I was going to fail. Clients were still coming, still had money in the bank, still, everything was great. Had my convertible, God had given me so much. Spirit had, was still coming through, but all of a sudden there was this underlying fear. And I'm like, okay, what is the fear, right? Because I think the first obligation from spiritual communication that is being misunderstood, which is so common, right? Because me moving home was something that I never even thought about, it wasn't something I would like. I was like, that's what spirit's guiding, what I'm being guided to next, because I just never put two and two together, and almost was like, no, gotta make it in the city, gotta make it, and then all of a sudden this hit me and it was just like, you've already made it. Like, and I got to this root of like, the fear was moving back home. I had this fear like, oh, I'm going to have to like leave Miami and move back home. And that's what failure looked like to me.
Yeah.
So I started visiting that of like, why does that look like failure to you? And before I knew it, I started unraveling this, like, I really do desire home. I do feel there's a craving there. It was like as if I did this big amount of healing in Miami and New York and doing a lot of traveling and working with all these practitioners. And now it's almost like there's what's the point of the healing if you can't be in the belly of the beast, right? Like, yeah. It's great to like have all these tools, but if I can't be with the ones that I love and return back to family, then what am I doing it for? And I think that there's different quadrants of family, and some people may just stay with their family. Some may stay in their designated family. I'm lucky enough to have several different variants of what family means to me. But I think one of the beautiful thing of going back to the family I was born in is that they get to experience me not triggered. They get to experience me just fully loved and healed, and I'm able to experience them in their fullness. And so because I've done this work, so
you're gonna make me cry. It's beautiful. It's like, it's one thing to be seen as like a medium, like a healer, like in Miami or New York, like where there's other people doing that, but like to go to fucking Tennessee where everyone's Christian and stuff is a a way bigger thing to be able to be seen, not only like for your family, but like the community, like as accepted. That's like, that's a big deal. So I'm proud of you.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you. I'm just beginning.
Yeah. So you're thinking about getting like a house or renting apartment or something? I don't know if they have apartments in Tennessee. I've never been there.
They do. You should come visit. They do
I
have,
love that.
and Knoxville's a mountain city, so it's more of a university town. Memphis is so cool. I love it. And they're in astrocartography. If we're going to get into this, I don't know if we talked about this in the last, but astrocartography is basically the same thing as your natal chart, but it looks at the same. So it's a screenshot of all the planets and stars when you're born, right? But it's a reflection of it on the earth. So there's different centers that you have for particular themes and planetary alignments that are based off the geography of the planet. And
It's super interesting.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. It's really baffling, and it's really cool to see the synchronicities of it. Like when you look up, oh wow, like I was living on my sun line, or this, I hated this place, and you're like, whoa, my Mars line goes right over that. No wonder. It's like it does make a lot of sense. But what's really interesting for me is that the Chiron line, not only the line, but literally like the hot spot of the area is directly over Memphis for me.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a lot of healing. It's a lot of past life, like people coming in, like as if I knew them. It's a really fun place to be, where Miami was very much on my Neptune line. So there was a lot of, spirituality.
Yeah, intuitive like connection.
Yeah. So I really enjoy spending a lot of time in Memphis, and I'm exploring the mountains right now. But what's been beautiful is, just speaking about there being a lot of Christianity here, is that I'm just beginning and building what's to come here, because I'm so excited. I really, it's amazing to see and connect with just like-minded people, so many things of what the teachings say about, we are reflections of what comes in our world. We truly are one. Is so true, because I am in a conservative town, and let me tell you, I go to church. Okay. I go hunting, duck hunting.
I've been seeing your all camo gear outfits.
Yeah.
But that's like, there can be beauty in that. It's like we can demonize these things like hunting, like it's like ew, but I think that is like, that's how we were made. We just have stepped so far away from that.
Totally. I mean, well, it's interesting because, what I've recognized is that the city world lives very different from the country life, right? And there's a big separation in our country right now that's going on. And one thing that I recognize is, like, in order for me to be a solvent of this, or have some kind of, really do my part or work in it, is to heal those parts of myself that are so separate, right?
Yeah.
And I live in two worlds. I'm a medium, and one part about being a medium that's so important is the study of self, but also the study of people, and being able to understand different people and being able to articulate it, right? Because that's how we get our signs and symbols once I sit down into a reading, right? Mm-hmm. Our signs and symbols come from our experiences, but we are only limited by what we know. So the more we are in experience of that, and I think that's something that's really interesting, because life set me up for mediumship all my life. Like, I was born in the South. I was born in Tennessee. But I was in the horse world growing up as a kid. So it was very international. We were traveling a lot. Saw a lot of different people. It was very much like a carny life. Like we traveled to the same shows, and there was different walks of life. There was 3 different levels of class there. You know, there was like the very wealthy, there was the people that worked with the horses, the trainers and the catch riders, and then there was like the barn help that were, you know, not making a ton of money, but were taken care of by these bigger families. And I got to see these things as a kid. Then I went to boarding school, which was an international boarding school. I mean, everybody was different there, you know, and then I just started traveling as a young kid. So all my life I've lived
And I
in
think art too, like having an art background, like, you know, that's my background too. It's like spirit will communicate in that language because that's what I understand. Like, and if someone was raised in the church, maybe they're going to give you symbols that are connected to the Bible or stories that you know, or whatever other religion. It's like they speak the way you speak. So it's like they're saying, like, the more you can find ways to understand other people, I feel like that gives us more options.
Totally. And I think that the world would be a better place if we just understood each other and knew that we're all genuinely want, like, to be at peace in our hearts, no matter who you are. Even if you're doing disastrous things, like, our worst enemy is judgment.
True. Like, I think when I first started doing like facials and stuff, that was a big thing for me, like assuming things about people. And then more that I was working on people touching them, it's like, I can't assume how much money you have by the way you dress or what your demeanor is. I can't assume that you have this or that, or like what you're going to do at home. Like, it's always shocking when it comes to, like, I think class specifically, but also people's perception of things. I'm like, oh, this person's not going to be a jokey, funny person. Like, I should just be really serious. And they're like, that's what they want. They want to laugh and have fun. And I'm like, oh, I did not expect that. So it's me. I'm the one who's judging them before they even talk. So it's I think, like, the more you can work on people, the more you can heal that for yourself too.
Totally.
Like,
and I think,
not just assuming things.
yeah, but I think also the objective of just learning to be yourself, no matter what room you're in, is the biggest superpower that you can ever articulate into the world. And that's been a big lesson for me. And I think it's a big honor for my family to see me in that way, of allowing me to be who I am. And, you know, what's beautiful is that I'm just beginning, like I said, and I'm really just beginning building community. And I really want to do a lot of in-person things, but I don't really have a lot of opposition being here. I haven't had one person actually. So I think we're all the same. Like I said, everyone wants to feel that peace and love and feel that sense of belonging. And it's very funny how every religion, everything ties back to the same source, right? And even Christianity, who I think gets a lot of bad talk about judgment of other people, because there is this quadrant of Christians that feel the need to judge other people's life based off the Bible. And to me, I feel as if, like, you know, no one's God. And I think when we play God, it can be really detrimental to our mental health.
I think that is so true. Even for ourselves, like when I'm trying to fucking finagle my life too hard and like figure everything out before it happens, like that is not helpful.
Totally.
Not at all. And I think, yeah, it's easy to say, okay, I can predict the future or psychic stuff or talk to spirits. But like, if it's going to be, yeah, causing you to have a, like a superiority thing of like, I can fix everything, then I don't think it's necessarily helpful.
Well, I think what's interesting about it, the more deeper I get into spirituality and religion studies, is that you just don't really ever know. And God is in the unknown. God is the unknown. And whenever you are in the unknown, that's when you're in with God. Whenever you're in possibility, you're with God, right? That's what the Bible says. So being able to find comfort in that and not be in the labelment of what is happening in your life, but to allow it to flow effortlessly and to live in that possibility of creation is really where the magic is at. And I think, but I will say that the Christian faith is pretty much mediumship.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, Jesus was definitely a medium for
so
sure.
let's just like take that elephant out of the room. Like, obviously, yes, Jesus was one of the first like spiritual teachers
And
that
like
is talking
hands-on
about this.
healing and all the things.
Yeah, and he's talking about all things I can do, you can do more, you can do it more, right? And then he also talks in the book of Acts, there's many explanations of mediumship. And then also in Exodus, there's an excerpt where he says, in the end, many will have the gift of prophecy. And I think that it's very clear in the Bible that this is possible. And not only is it possible, it's healing and
It's normal.
it's normal. And I think another thing about Christianity is literally it is mediumship. The whole entire faith of media is mediumship. Because if you have the belief that Jesus was someone that walked here once on earth and you're connecting to the Holy Spirit, his Holy Spirit,
Oh, you're giving me chills.
that is mediumship. And that's exactly what I sit down and do every reading. So I believe that we've got to separate and let go of the governing and politics of religion and get back to listening. And that's what my work's about. I myself am in love with listening, and I love helping other clients and facilitating containers where we can take a moment and listen, because I know there's a lot of prayer in church. There's a lot of prayer everywhere, asking for things, but I want to create a world where we really connect with that higher sense, feel empowered by it, confident in who we are, and feel that connection to Mother Nature, that feeling of like, I belong here, and I'm here to take up space and write my story and sing it out loud for the world to hear.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I agree. I think like the more that it's like hard, I think sometimes to separate, okay, we know obviously what happened with the whole trajectory of everything with colonialism and all that. So I think it's hard to be like, okay, the church is not the same as God. So I just think a lot of people need to heal that. And for me, it was really shifting the language, like being comfortable saying God, things like that. Like, because I think for a long time that was like weird. I was like, ew. A man, first of all, a man, even though God I don't think is a man, but like in my mind, I'm like this beard old man. But I think, yeah, it's like a big healing for a lot of people, even if you weren't raised religious, like, because it's so much ingrained in America.
Yeah. But I think it's important for us to do our own work, right? And that's, for me, was my judgment on my upbringing and to heal the religious trauma that I received and overcome that hump of my experience of those different identities of God. And it's still a little weird for me to hear him because, but at the end of the day, God is no gender, right? Like, it's nothing. God is nothing.
Yeah, it's everything and nothing at the same time.
Everything and nothing. And so it's interesting for me to hear that, because especially growing up, being in the last 10 years in yoga studios and prayer circles, it's very much so
the universe.
yeah, but I think it's also interesting because it's like, why not a him? Like, I also am willing to be loved by the male identity as much as I am the female identity, you know?
That is it right there, because that's the healing, like for me and for so many people, it's like not being comfortable receiving love from like the masculine. And I think a lot of that goes back to people's daddy issues, but I think it's all connected. So it's very interesting to me to reframe those words. And for me too, like recently, the last few weeks, I've been doing praying, where I just talk out loud, like as if I'm talking to my bestie, God. But it's been weird because I'm like, okay, I feel weird saying out loud, but it's been really healing because I will talk about things and then the next day, like things have shifted. I'm like, okay, that's how I see that it works, that it helps me. And that doesn't necessarily have to be God. That could be your spirit guides or whatever. But for me, it's been healing to say that, to say God, as opposed to my guides or my higher self or whatever. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's a powerful word.
God. Amazing. Well, I want to ask you about some of your opinions on some things. So I see all sorts of bullshit on the internet. I'm sure you do too, around people putting out channeled messages or whatever. So if someone was looking for a medium, obviously they could book a reading with you or with me or, you know, any of the other people on my podcast that I very much believe in. But like, if someone was looking for a medium, what would be like some kind of green flags, like a good thing, like you're like, that's a person that I could probably trust to do a reading for me? And obviously we can look at testimonials and all that, but just like the first kind of things you would think of.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'd be called to the person, like they would just kind of light up and be thinking about it. I also would come in with the expectations that sometimes you may be called to a healer that might just have one message for you, and then the rest of it can be trash, you know? And you might also just need to be triggered or not get what you need, you know, like we're not going to always get what we want out of these readings. And so sometimes, you know, you before you even get into a reading, you've really got to get to a place of surrender where you can. I like to become a skeptic before I go into a reading. So I sit back and really receive. And I have no expectations. That's what's great about being a skeptic. I love reading skeptics because it's just the energy is just so much more open in some way. Because, you know, resistance is kind of this, it kind of works the same way as manifestation mediumship, you know? So if you are like resisting it, it'll just be louder and it's a little bit easier for the medium, in my perspective. So I would prepare myself in that way before I go into a reading. When I'm choosing a medium, I mean, I definitely would look at reviews. I would listen to other people who've asked as a referral. Sometimes I feel called to someone. And you know, it's a really unregulated business. So even if they are verified as a medium by some kind of organization, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be great. Every medium is kind of variant and different. I would definitely look up and see their style. You know, you can kind of tell someone's style from their pictures, if they have videos. You know, the person that I'm going to channel is going to be different than, you know, the person that, you know, an older woman that's a medium from England would, you know, that lives a different life, right? Like I'm going to channel someone different, and not that your loved one that you want to speak to won't come through, but it's like, it may be different because we're limited by our experiences. So I think that's a big thing. I think you really want to be careful around, you know, once we start talking, any medium that really starts talking about dark energy, it's different to be saying that like either you're going through a hard time or, you know, be specific, you know, don't just be like, there's some dark energy here. Like,
Yeah, or like you have a
get into
curse
it.
on your bloodline or
Right. So that's the thing. There's a lot of lazy mediums where they will give you blanket statements or might not get so down into it. And you want to be careful around dark energy, those things, because, you know, we all go through different moments in time. And, you know, a shadow is a different variant of color that makes the rainbow. And you're going to have not just, you know, we talk about ourselves like we're in polarities, like there's the light in me and there's the shadow. And that's just not the case. There's the light in you, and there's very many different variants of your shadow that make a beautiful orchestra. And so, depending on what you're going in your life, like, you want to be careful around that, of especially someone saying that you have something attached to you, or you have any of that kind of weird stuff, or, oh, pay more for me to cleanse this energy, because no one can cleanse it from you. Like, you've got to go through the work, and that takes time because you got to go through your healing cycle all the way through it. And sometimes that is through a woman's period cycle. That's our natural rhythms cycle. So or sometimes it may take years, but like, you've got to be the person that does that inner work. And I think that it's best to go to mediums that you're really looking to connect to someone that's crossed over. Going to a medium trying to figure out the rest of your life as in a psychic form is not going to be really that fitting for you. You're really going to want to make sure that you're coming from that place. And lastly, I would honor mediums that would give refunds. I think that's an important thing to say, is that, you know, you're not guaranteed to have who you want to come through, and mediums are genuinely working. And I'm not saying if you're like dissatisfied because what you didn't get what you wanted to hear,
But if
but
it was like genuinely just not what
yeah,
they
if
said it was
you're,
going to be.
yeah, if you were feeling like genuinely uncomfortable and felt that they were not ethical, I think that mediums should definitely offer refunds in some way, because I don't think that I know that I've been in situations throughout my studies, and I like to bebop through different mediums, and, you know, it's just like, I don't know, you know, what happens with mediumship is they lose their connection, because we fall, right? And in the history of time of the esoteric world, people fall all the time. And when I say fall, I mean, we get stuck in our desires or egoic desires, and lose that preservation of spirit. And it's hard to walk that line all the time. And honestly, we're here to be adults, and so not adults, but we're here to be humans. So we're going to slip, like, that's only natural. And we learn to come back, right, every time. But mediums are at fault of human error. So sometimes they may come in and project something on you that doesn't feel accurate to you, and you are welcome to not take that. And I think before you go into medium reading, really being aware of that, and just to know that you can ask for your money back if you felt uncomfortable. And not only is it important, it's an important thing, because we are very much shaping mediumship and spiritual businesses right now. And so it is important for us to do such things so we can create a stable economy, and leave feedback for mediums so that we can truly grow as a community.
And I think too, like, you know, as a reader, like, that might hurt my fucking feelings, but that's not the point. Like, that's not the point. Like, I might be upset, like, oh, I didn't do a good reading, but that's okay. Like, we don't, like you say, like, we're always learning, and it's not necessarily true that everyone is the person that you're supposed to read. Like, you might be able to do a really accurate reading for Joe, and I don't get any shit for Joe. So if Joe comes to see me, he might not be happy, and that's okay. Like, it's not the same every time. You can't like predict it. And also, I think there's a big difference between a healing session and a reading. Like, you could heal from a reading, like you could get that information and it's going to set you up for your healing. Like you said, it might happen in a month, it might happen in 3 years. But if you're going to do like Reiki or some other type of healing, like, it might move through things through you faster, but it's also a time frame too. And sometimes, I will have seen like spirits that are kind of lingering around with people, but I'm never going to say to them, this is an attachment and you have to pay extra money and blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to have that conversation with the spirit, say, why are you here? If they don't have a reason to be there, I can tell them, oh, you can leave. But I don't necessarily need to tell the client all that if it's going to be not helpful, because I think sometimes it can be scary. And the whole point is to bring you into that peaceful connection, not to bring up these unnecessary fears. Like, they might not know how to handle it, and there's no reason why to bring it up.
I think also just talking about what's happening, like what's going on, like, is it worry?
You're like, how are you feeling right now?
Like, not just leaving in it, like there's an attachment and dark energy, but like, attachment is a real thing, but it's something that is self-inflicted, right? Like, if this person
it's like emotional
constantly, like if they're constantly worried about their child or, whatever it is, like, you can speak to that in the reading and go deeper within it, or even speaking of the spirit's experience of that, right? But really, our healing comes from the places where we think something's wrong, So not that there are bad things that happen in the world, like there's definitely unfortunate things that happen, but I think those moments that we forget who we are, that we are these perfect, innocent light beings,
my guides call it the innocence template, like going back to that.
I love it. What does the innocent template mean?
The innocence template, like, to me, it means like being able to take off, like imagining we're wearing like 37 coats, and all the coats that we have on are like wounds, like pains that we have, or things that we think about ourselves that might not be true. It's like being able to take off, that's just a visual they give me, but taking off all the coats, and then you're just in your, underwear. But that's like the innocence. Like, these stories that we tell ourselves, however we pick them up, whether that's from our parents or past lives or the media or whatever, your family, it's like, we don't understand that they're not really us until we remove them. And then we're like, wait, that's not me. I had no idea.
Oh, hi.
Like these little masks. Some people call them a mask. But
yeah, exactly. Like, I think we just forget that sometimes. And I think it's important when we're seeing shadow or something like that in a medium reading to just go deeper in it. What's the experience that's happening? And like really get articulate and detailed about what's happening that's causing this shadow or like veil that's over it. What is the coat, the template coat, like you described, or what is it, the mask that's being put on? Because I think that's where we need to be careful as mediums, is not to get lazy and say, oh, well, this person wore a mask, or, they hid their feelings. Like, what did they hide their feelings around? What did it come from? What was the root of that? We're very complex beings, so there's so much to dive into.
And I think too, like, yeah, if we're trying to provide this evidence, like in mediumship, we're specifically talking about communicating with a spirit, like a human that was once alive. like it can't just be like this tiny little thing for some people to understand who we're talking to. Like sometimes it takes a lot of evidence for the sitter, like the person receiving the reading, to understand. And that might not come right away. They might be like, oh yeah, that reading I got 2 years ago with Sloan, like now I understand what the fuck she's talking about.
Oh, that always
So
happens.
sometimes it does take a little bit of time. So yeah, just that.
Yeah, I think that's important to say, is that, yeah, it does take time. And I'm not talking about like, you should feel, there's moments that you can feel triggered, but
Yeah.
like, you don't want to feel,
Like you got ripped off.
I mean, no, there's moments where I've gone to readings and I felt like I got ripped off, and then everything, because those are the readings that sometimes are the ones we're resisting, right? We get like a bucket full of things that we didn't want, but I don't know, it hits differently in a way. It's kind of like, there was some truth there. It may not feel that way in the very beginning, but then at the end, it does feel that way. But I just think that we do need to hold people accountable, because there is so much BS out in the world, like so much BS. Like, if you go on Etsy, it's just like a slew of like really
like spell like let me draw. I tried to buy this one time just because I was like, I need to know what happens, and I never got it in the mail. But it was a soulmate drawing from Etsy, and these people are like, I will draw your soulmate, and I was like, let me see what the fuck I get. And I paid like $20 for it, and they never sent it to me.
Oh my God,
But they're supposed to like draw your soulmate, and there were reviews on there like, wow, like amazing. I was like, well, let me see what I get. And never got anything. So I was like, I guess I don't have one.
I did that same one. Do you want to see mine?
Oh my God, yeah, I do. But yeah, there's like such funny, like, and it's like if you do it from a playful thing, like, let me just see what I get. Like, but if you're expecting a 5-star reading from a $5 weird Etsy ad, you're not gonna get that.
Well, I think also, yeah, it's a lot about having fun, and but also when you're grieving a lot, it can be a safe space for you to go in when you're grieving. But it is important. I mean, pretty much any time that we're healing, it's so important for us to go into communities that are safe, but also at the same time, at the same moment, it's kind of like you've got to go through your process, and sometimes the process looks a little.
Shows you what you don't want.
Ready? You want to see
Oh
it?
my God.
Are you gonna
I'm
do
excited.
If I put this up there, do you think it's gonna not come true?
No, I don't believe in that.
Okay.
I don't believe in jinxes.
What do you think?
He looks like, have you seen Supernatural, that show?
I think she pulled him off.
He looks like that actor.
Oh, well, can you send it to me? Because he might be my lover.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you later. I think he's hot, but he's a kind of a short king. I don't know how you feel about that.
Short king.
That's so funny.
I was gonna say is that I think everyone goes through their healing journey, and like, you and I both love Britney Spears, and we always feel like a woke Britney is what's gonna like I feel like a woke Britney is what's gonna heal the world.
I'm very nervous about her postings as of late. She had her birthday the other day, and there was all these, not to get like conspiratorial, but I'm like, why is she posting these videos saying it's now when I am a fan? I'm a super fan. I know that's a video from 2 years ago. I remember that.
Yeah,
and I don't get it. But I do think like she is a big representation, I think, for a lot of people in our generation of like this ability to connect with like sensuality, sexuality. But I do think she's been kind of obviously damaged in that through her whole conservatorship thing and all that.
Isn't it kind of crazy that our entire culture damaged her in that way? Like, it's just crazy to think about. I mean, I remember as a kid, like, I remember being like, Britney's not a virgin anymore.
Yeah, when she had sex, and I
Why?
remember like the when she made out with Madonna and Christina, and everyone was like freaking out about that, like, oh my God. And just the paparazzi in general, like that whole concept, I'm like, wow, things have changed a little bit about that, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely think we've become more ethical. And I think we can all look back at Britney and recognize that as a culture, we really did not make the correct decisions with it. But I also think that Britney is definitely displaying, not that I'm a psychologist or anything, but she's definitely displaying mental illness. Like,
Yeah.
and so I really think that, you know, and it's hard as a medium because I see things from a very big perspective, and I feel that it is big and transformational for us to be living in a time where we are so conscious of mental health. And, I think that she's a beautiful representation of healing, and that we do go through this process of anger, sadness, taking medication and like what that looks like, or feeling discombobulated, just totally off our rocker, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
sometimes you like go through shit, and like it doesn't mean that you're gonna always be in that.
yeah,
Like, even if it's literally a psychosis, like I don't want to encourage anyone to
no,
go
don't go.
through that, but like you can come out of that. Like, it's not a forever thing for everyone.
Yeah, I think you can totally come out of it. And I think that, and I know this is hard to talk about, especially for my dear friends and family of like, as someone that lives with a family member that goes in and out of those phases that just are wild to witness as an outsider, because that there's definitely something very real going inside of them, right? And also my experience of having a family member that deals with these kind of episodes is also like medication seems to support, but it's also this kind of like nerve-wracking thing of like making sure that you're taking these like hard drugs at the same time.
And it's hard because you have to get so much other like when I was young, I was on a lot of medications, and it was like you have to go get your blood drawn, all that kind of stuff. So it gets complicated, but it is a miracle for certain people,
for a lot
to
of
be able
people.
to have
Yeah.
that.
But I think it's also for some, it can be uncomfortable. Some of the side effects aren't feeling good, And so, but just to witness someone go through that experience, and especially so publicly, like Britney, I think that it takes a lot of courage, and my heart like always goes out to that. And I think it's also beautiful because Britney's like, here I am, and this is what I'm experiencing, and I'm putting it all out in everybody's face. And I'm acting out, I'm lashing out, I'm angry. And, I think it's interesting because people will say, well, isn't it wrong that she's doing this? And I don't know.
I don't think so.
Like she's angry.
She's been through a lot, and like
like
we can't necessarily police how people decide to express themselves.
right. And I think everyone is kind of like an artist. So she wants to post a naked picture of herself on the Instagram. Like that's where she's at. And there may be some real pain and struggle that is unworked and unhealed under that is causing a lot of inconsistent behaviors, or maybe even like who knows what's behind that. But in the mediumship side of it, spirit always shows someone like this as a warrior, as someone that's here to sit and face a darker shadow of society, right? And like not talking about shadow and like something's attached to you, but there's a reason why everyone is born here. Like, more educated women don't have children, right? We don't more there's statistics that show that women that are educated have less children. And that might be because of the society, or the way that the structure is built out around business and childcare and those things, but it's literally what's happening. So if a soul is choosing its destiny and its life here on earth, and if you believe that, then you've got to understand that then you must also accept that souls are also coming on this planet to learn. And that's why they're going into more impoverished homes, less education, like that is the case, right? Or like even more rural land. There's, in Tennessee, it's very common to have 3 or 4 children. In the city, it's about 1 or 2, that's about it. And if you have 3 or 4, like, you must be really banking because it's not comfortable, right? Or you must live in a different region. So I think if you understand those perspectives, you know that we are here to struggle. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. And it's definitely not about material wealth. It does not, it does not have hierarchy in any context like that. We're really all here to go, and we're here to grow, and life is a really long time. So there's points in your life where you're struggling and you can overcome it and you can rise from it again. And there's moments where you may fall back into that struggle, but the less judgment we have for ourselves and others that are living out these experiences. And I'm not saying to not take action when needed, right? If like safety or anything like that is in question. And I don't believe that that's how spiritual intellect works, because there's 2 sides to being spiritually led. There's 2 sides to manifestation. There's 2 sides to prayer. And that is that you set that intention, you align your belief system with what you desire, you want to experience. But the second part of it is you take action. And so I think that's important to state, but we are all learning and being in that state of experiencing, witnessing, and truly experiencing life with an open heart is one of the most powerful gifts that we can give the planet, the universe, the cosmos.
I agree. I think it's very difficult to see, okay, like if I was born into, I'm a king, like of course I picked my life. But then if you're not a king, then you might have these ideas of, oh, why did I fucking choose this? But it's not necessarily like you're saying all about the literalness of it, of I'm literally living this way. It's like, how are those things teaching you things, and what do they, symbolize? It's very hard, I think, to literalize some spiritual concepts sometimes. So having the idea that, yeah, you can take the action. So, okay, maybe I was born in this experience, but I still have things that I can do to make changes for myself.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not like I have to accept everything.
Oh yeah, totally. But I think also it's just not like, I think also you don't have to accept everything, correct? But I do think that there's a big part of us that sometimes reject who we already are, right? And I think that's the part of healing. And you're talking about me returning home, is just like me accepting. I think there is a big part of acceptance that is required, and it comes from you accepting who you are. And then when you accept who you are and let go of the resistance of who you're not, right? Because that's so much of our inner work. Like that's what healing is, right? Just to become yourself, is that you then the judgment of other people and that it just it fades away because you don't see, you know, because you're really just looking at a reflection of yourself, right? And this isn't a spiritual terminology. It's not like you're literally staring at that reflection, but what you are seeing is something that you're making up about the experience, right? With the things that you remember about the conversation, because most of the times we're not actually living in like what the physical world looks like. It's actually, we're living in our world. So the things that you remember, right? Things that pick up, things that are triggering you, things that excite you, all of those things are made up in your little world and your big world, right? So when we understand that there's like every human has all the emotions, like we all have the same emotions. There's no one that is like, you don't, you know, like you didn't skimp out on sadness. Like God didn't like just not give you sadness, right? Like we all have all these emotions inside of us. And if we're not dealing with them or feeling them, they'll project onto someone else. And I think there's a little part of all of us that have Britney inside of us, because she wouldn't be some kind of pop icon that's having this huge cultural breakdown, right?
No, we are all we are the same.
Yeah, we are the same.
Me.
I think she really is reflecting our cultural breakdown that's currently happening in the world right now. That's how I think.
Isn't it exciting?
He's an archetype, and I think that's what's so powerful about it.
My friend, she hasn't given them to me yet, but she got an oracle deck that's like Britney Spears themed, and she like someone gave it to her and she was like, I have to give this to my friend Grace, like this is perfect. So
please tell me about it, because I think
I will. I'm really excited.
And I'm like, I think I've seen that. You're probably going to need to plug that in this episode, because there are going to be people asking about those.
Oh yeah, I'll put once you give them to me, I'll post them on my Instagram. I have one more question before we close out, unless there's something else you want to say.
No.
I'm just curious because I saw your stories when you were traveling a couple months ago, where you did a ghost hunting experience. I want to hear about it just briefly, but I saw you were doing like you had the EMFs and all that, but how was your experience as a medium doing a ghost hunt?
Oh. So one thing I've loved about being in the South is getting to explore spirituality expressed here, because it really is expressed in so many ways. It always has been, but with my open eye, right? My third eye, I'm able to see more clearly, and I've been able weaving through different communities. And I came upon this town, Eureka Springs, which is a vortex community. It has these healing springs that date back all the way to Native Americans and mob bosses. Like people from the Wild West used to go there to heal things like syphilis, but also there's a story about a Native American chief that brought his daughter there to heal themselves, and in the Victorian area they went there to heal these. And it's really interesting because there's springs all around the town, and the water is unique. It's very high in iron, which I guess would make sense of why it would be like healing, but it definitely doesn't taste good. But it has really profound powers. I love going through different vortexes. And to me, vortexes really, you know, it's a plane in the it's a space in the earth where the energy typically spirals down, right? So like it's almost as if you walk through and you notice that all of a sudden things start to become really slow, like molasses. Sometimes emotions just come up where you start to cry and you don't understand why, or but all of a sudden you're having a profound like alignment. And sometimes the vortex happens because of tectonic plates or the type of stones that are in the ground. And also it can come from different intentions over time set by people and energy, right? Yeah. So this place, the Eureka Springs, was very spiritual. I mean, synchronicity. And I'm a big spiritual travel person. I can't explain it, but it's like all of a sudden I feel like I'm being guided somewhere, and then I'm like literally getting a free ticket there. Like it all, like everything just roads store just start opening up, and I get all these kind of downloads, and I do a lot of healing work while I'm in these cities and doing this traveling. And then I come back and I write about it and I share it in my programs. But in Eureka Springs, I did do a ghost hunting tour, and it was very touristy. Maybe the don't. But I did have an experience with a spirit. They said, you know, if anyone wants to be the guinea pig. And
Did anyone there know you're a medium, or you just like were like, I'm not gonna say anything?
I think I told them eventually. Like there was a cool tour guide lady, and it was more really interesting about the history. But you know, I'm a spiritual medium. I work a lot with evidential mediumship. I mean, I am an evidential mediumship. So for me, I'm a skeptic always. And so I needed more facts. There just wasn't enough facts, but a blinking light, you know, and some heat temperature showing. But I did have the doll heat up on the thermic camera, which my friend was holding the thermic camera, and the light was beeping up. I did feel a spirit come through. I don't know if it was the same. She was saying, and the other thing I didn't love about it is that she was telling us about the experience. She's like, this is the little girl that's coming through. And to me, I wanted to have my own experience around it. And I didn't know if it could have been a little girl, but it was pretty neat. It was pretty neat. Have you ever been to like Eureka Springs? Have you ever been to like a Vortex or Sedona?
No, but I really want to go. I am close to Mount Shasta, so I've driven through, but I've never gone. I really want to go. But I'm very intrigued. I feel like, I think it's closed now, but I think there was a vortex in my house, and there's all these gnomes that were coming up for a while when I first moved in here. But I see it like it's like a spiral. So I don't know if that's a vortex or a portal. I don't know what you call it, but that makes sense to me that a vortex would be more like built up over time, like with the energy of the land, but also what we're doing on the land.
Yeah.
But I've always been intrigued by like the, you know, the Zach Baggins and shit. I would watch those Ghost Hunters and stuff when I was like in middle school and high school, but I have never done anything like that. Like now that I've kind of opened up to mediumship, and I would be intrigued. I don't think I could go to a hospital, like a mental hospital kind of thing. I don't think I could do that.
Well,
but maybe like something like that where it's just an object kind of thing could be interesting.
yeah. Well, what spiritualists believe is that there's no like haunting of spaces, but instead it's psychic energy throughout time. I don't know what I'm really believe in, but I do believe that I think that as intuitives, we're affected by the space that we're in. I'm very much a sponge, and I try to hack that system as much as I possibly can and empower myself by the space, people, and things that I eat, and wisdom that I've taken. So I probably wouldn't be able to go to something that's like really lower energy, but you know, I feel as if it is kind of I'm in this phase of my mediumship where I really want people to understand that it's our time. And I think this is a good way to close out, is that it's our moment. It's our time to get out of the dark seance rooms. It's time for us to get out of the closet, get out of our heads, and get into action, because the world is evolving quickly, and we all have a part in this. And it's our time to share, to show up, to make mistakes, let it be messy, and show up to the table, because the world is calling for it, and the world is a better place as we show up as mediums, right? So I want to give that message, and anyone that takes my trainings, we have the spiritual development circle coming up, and should be unloading right as this is recording. And that's one of the 6-month containers that totally uplifts, uproots your life. and puts you into the gear of being spiritually led by using the tool of mediumship to guide this deeper relationship with self. And I think that right now in my life, I want people to understand that you can have the courage to do anything. And it's not about people feeling low energy. You know, it's like, we're no longer reading the room. We are influencing the room, and it's time for money in our hands. It's time for us to have power and to be governing sources in our communities of power, so we can start to build different communities that of sovereignty and of light and of a world that we all feel empowered in, and give opportunities for healing. So
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Sloan. That was beautiful. I think that is one of the most important reminders for people. Like, it's not only about doing readings, it's about taking that information and bringing it into everyday life. So I very much encourage people to check out Sloan's classes and offerings. I'll put all your information in the show notes so people can find you. And yeah, you are doing one-on-one readings too right now, or no? Just the
yeah, I'm
classes?
still booking one-on-one readings. I have that SDC circle, which is a 6-month mastermind. Like I said before, you get access to everything, and I'm piecing together right now. I'm launching a retreat.
Oh, cool.
Which
That's
is
exciting.
Yes, I'm so excited about it. I don't know if I should say much more about it, but I'll put the link in the bio when
Yeah, send me all your links and we'll add them, and we'll put a link for your book as well so people can find it.
The retreats are awesome. We just got done in Sedona, and that was absolutely incredible. And this next one is in a really special place. So if you guys are interested, because the in-person mediumship experiences are just really profound. So I'm not going to give any tidbits because I'm not there yet, but it's in the works. So I'm going to just give
Well, and
you
this is going to come out in a few weeks too. So I'll check in with you because you might be ready to share more.
I will be ready to share more, but I'm just going to leave the link in the bio. So if anyone wants more, they have to go and scroll.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It was so nice to talk with you. And then, yeah, everyone can find Sloan, check out all her stuff, and we will see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you.